Fluminense Football Club, known simply as Fluminense, is a Brazilian sports club best known for its football team that plays in the Campeonato Brasileiro Série A copyright A, the top tier of Brazilian football, and the Campeonato Carioca, the state league of Rio de Janeiro. The club is based in the Laranjeiras neighbourhood of Rio de Janeiro. The club was founded on July 21, 1902 by the sons of Carioca aristocrats, being led by Oscar Cox, a Brazilian sportsman, in the bairro of Flamengo, a direct contrast between the aristocratic founders and the modest ground it was founded on. Cox was elected as the club's first president. Fluminense is a demonym for people who reside in the state of Rio de Janeiro. Although football is the club's original endeavor, the club is today an umbrella organization for several teams and more than 16 different sport activities. Fluminense's home kit is maroon and green vertical striped shirts, with white shorts, accompanied by white socks. This combination has been used since 1920. Aided as other kit manufacturers. Fluminense play their home games at the Maracanã Stadium, which currently holds up to 78,838 spectators. Fluminense holds many long-standing rivalries, most notably against Botafogo, Flamengo, and Vasco da Gama. It has contributed the fifth most players to Brazil's national football team. History. Fluminense Football Club was founded on July 21, 1902 in Rio de Janeiro by Oscar Cox, a Brazilian of English heritage in the then aristocratic neighbourhood of Laranjeiras. Fluminense was formed by sons of the elite who had come into contact with football while studying in Europe. The first official match was played against now-defunct Rio FC, and ended 8-0 to Fluminense. The club's first title came in 1906, when Fluminense won the Campeonato Carioca. In 1911, disagreement between Fluminense players led to the formation of Flamengo's football team. The so-called Fla-Flu derby is considered one of the biggest in the history of Brazilian football. 3 years later, in Fluminense's stadium, the Brazilian national football team debuted, against touring English club Exeter City. It was also there that they won their first title, in the 1919. By 1924, Fluminense had 4,000 members, a stadium for 25,000 people, and facilities that impressed clubs in Europe. In an unfortunate event in 1914, Carlos Alberto, a mulatto playing for Fluminense, decided to cover himself in face powder to disguise the color of his skin. This ultimately led to one of the club's nicknames, Pá Cube de Arroz, which is the Portuguese for white powder. After 1925, Fluminense began pressuring for the professionalization of football, but it was not until the 1950s that the club started to accept black players in its squad. However, in 1945 they hired a black coach, Gentil Cardoso. The following year saw an expansion of the club's hegemony in Rio. Fluminense would remain unsurpassed in terms of state championships until 2009. International acclaim came in 1949 with the awarding of the Olympic Cup, and was further fostered in 1952 with Fluminense's first intercontinental honor, the Copa Rio. The club established itself regionally with victory in 2 Torneio Rio São Paulo Cups in 1957 and 1960. National honors followed in 1970, 1984, 2010 and 2012 with Tour Seccional de Prata and Série A copyright A Cups, respectively, also taking the cup in Brazil in 2007. From the 1950s, with the creation of the Rio São Paulo tournament, the forerunner of what eventually would become the national championship, Fluminense established itself regionally by winning the tournament title in the years of 1957 and 1960. From the 1960s, the first national championships began to be played in Brazil. Fluminense's first national title came in 1970. In that time, Brazil had the best players in world football, and all of them played in Brazilian's clubs. Although not counted in its squad with the main players of the season in Brazil, Fluminense won the Brazilian champions, surpassing the great strengths of the time in Santos, Palmeiras and Cruzeiro. In the 1970s, Fluminense signed up several famous players like Roberto Rivelino. This time, called as Maquina Tricolor, It won the state championship in the years of 1975 and 1976. In the national championship, Fluminense lost in the semi-final matches to Internacional in 1975 and Corinthians in 1976. Fluminense again became the Brazilian champion in 1984. This time, they won the state championship in the years of 1983, 1984 and 1985 with players like Romerito, Ricardo Gomes, Dele, and the Castle-Winter and Washington. At the end of the 1980s, Copa do Brasil was created, inspired by the Cups tournament played in European countries. Fluminense reached the final of the Copa do Brasil for the first time in 1992, losing the final match to Internacional de Porto Alegre. A disastrous campaign led to the club's relegation from ZAR Copyright RIA in 1996. A set of off-field political maneuvers, however, not performed by Fluminense, allowed Fluminense to remain in Brazil's top domestic league, only to be relegated the next year. Completely out of control, the club was relegated from ZAR Copyright RIA B to ZAR Copyright RIA C in 1998. In 1999, Fluminense won the ZAR Copyright RIA C championship and was to be promoted to ZAR Copyright RIA B when it was invited to take part in Copa João Paulo Havelange, a championship that replaced the traditional ZAR Copyright RIA in 2000. In 2001, it was decided that all clubs which took part in Copa João Paulo Havelange's so-called Blue Group should be kept in ZAR Copyright RIA. In 2002, 2005 and 2012, Fluminense won again the Campeonato Carioca. In 2005 Fluminense reached the final of the Copa do Brasil again, having lost the final match to Paulista Futebol Clube. In 2007, Fluminense won the Copa do Brasil, after beating Figueirense in the final match, and was admitted in the Copa Libertadores again after 23 years. The club's campaign led it into the finals and included remarkable matches against Arsenal de Saranda, São Paulo and Boca Juniors. Fluminense lost the cup to LDU Quito in a penalty shootout. After signing up 27 players and going through 5 different managers in 2009, Fluminense found itself struggling to avoid another relegation from ZAR Copyright RIA. With less than one-third of the championship left, the mathematical probability of the club's relegation was of 98%. At this point, manager Cuca decided to sack some of the more experienced players and gave Fluminense's youngsters a chance. That, along with Fred's recovery from a serious injury and substantial support from the fans, allowed not only a sensational escape from relegation, but also placed Fluminense in the final of the Copa Sudamericana. For the second year in a row, the club contested a Continental Cup. In a repeat of the previous year's Copa Libertadores, Fluminense lost the cup to LDU Quito. In 2010, Fluminense won the Brazilian Championship for the third time in its history, marking their third national championship after 1970 and 1984. It was also the fourth title for coach Muricy Ramalho in a decade. Ramalho had won the title 3 times in a row with São Paulo from 2006 to 2008. Dario Conca was named the Brazilian Championship's Player of Season, while Fred and Washington were decisive players in Fluminense's winning campaign. On May 23, 2012, Fluminense lost the semi-final qualification match to Boca Juniors from Argentina, for the Continental Club Football Cup, Copa Libertadores. Later that year, on November 11, they won their 4th Brazilian championship after defeating the near-relegated Palmeiras 3-2. Fluminense won the ZAR Copyright RIA for the 4th time on November 11, 2012. In December 2013, a tie with BA in the last round of the 2013 Campeonato Brasileiro ZAR Copyright RIA had Fluminense mathematically relegated to the ZAR Copyright RIA B. However, an irregular line-up by Portuguesa in the match against Grêmio in the previous round, which included midfielder ZAR Copyright Verton, suspended for the affair, caused the ZAR São Paulo side to lose 4 points after a trial in STJD. That allowed Fluminense to stay in ZAR Copyright RIA, with Portuguesa being relegated instead. The move was widely criticized by fans and reporters alike, mainly because it marked the second time in 15 years that Fluminense was relegated but did not play the following year's ZAR copyright Ribe due to a legal decision. Performance: Fluminense has taken part in 36 of the 38 official Serie A championships organized in Brazil since 1971. Sponsors: companies that Fluminense Football Club currently has sponsorship deals with include Adidas, a Eurokit supplier since 1996. Records: highest attendance is a Euro Maracana pound equals 1. Fluminense 0 a Euro 0 Flamengo, 1963 194,603 areas to the first, 2. Fluminense 3 a Euro 2 Flamengo, 1969 171,599, 3. Fluminense 1 a Euro 0 Botafogo, 1971 160,000, 4. Fluminense 0 a Euro 0 Flamengo, 1976 155,116, 5. Fluminense 1 a Euro 0 Flamengo, 1984 153,520, 6. Fluminense 1 a Euro 1 Corinthians, 1976 146,043 areas to the first paying 177,656, a record of persons present at Maracana Pound Stadium. Highest means of public competition for Fluminense largest average attendance in the Copa Libertadores, 52,801, largest average attendance in the Copa Sudamericana, 29,357, largest average attendance in international tournaments, 48,797, largest average attendance in national championships, 43,541 pags. Largest average attendance in the tournament Roberto Gomes Pedrosa, 40,408 pags. Largest average attendance in the Brazil Cup, 27,123 pags. Largest average attendance in the Rio São Paulo tournament, 33,018 pags. Largest average attendance in the state championship, 47,814 pags. Largest average attendance in the state championship in the Maracana Stadium, 93,560 pags. Support: the supporters of Fluminense Football Club are usually related to the upper classes of Rio de Janeiro. However, the popularity of the club reaches beyond the city limits. Recent polls have estimated the number of supporters to be between 1.3% and 3.7% of the Brazilian population. Considering a population of 185 million people, that would account for numbers between 2.73 and 6.84 million. The best attendance ever observed in a match of Fluminense was registered on December 15, 1963 in a rally against Flamengo. On that day, an impressive amount of 194,000 people showed up at the Maracana Pound Stadium. This occasion remains as the stadium's record for a match between clubs. Notable supporters of Fluminense include composers Cartola and Chico Buarque, FIFA President of Honor Joe Poundo Havilang, musician Ivan Lins, poet and actor Mario Lago, journalist and songwriter Nelson Motta and dramatist, journalist and writer Nelson Rodrigues, 1970 FIFA World Cup winner Gar copyright RSON, Paris Saint-Germain's top defense player Thiago Silva, former Minister of Culture and international artist Gilberto Gilbert, Silvio Santos, the owner of SBT, the second largest Brazilian television network, and the Academy Award nominee Fernanda Montenegro. Titles: Intercontinental Copa Rio Internacional, 1952. National Campeonato Brasileiro ZAR Copyright Rie, 1970, 1984, 2010, 2012, Copa do Brasil, 2007. Regional Torneio Rio São Paulo, 1957, 1960, Tour Section of Brazil South Zone, 1960, Tour Section IA during the Euro Rio São Paulo, 1919. Local Campeonato Carioca, 1906, 1907 areas to the first, 1908, 1909, 1911, 1917, 1918, 1919, 1924, 1936, 1937, 1938, 1940, 1941, 1946, 1951, 1959, 1964, 1969, 1971, 1973, 1975, 1976, 1980, 1983, 1984, 1985, 1995, 2002, 2005, 2012. Fluminense main derbies, Fla-Flu, also called Derby of Crowds, played with Flamengo. Giants Derby, played with Vasco. Grandpa Derby, played with Botafogo. According to the Flusai.info site, the average public paying the principal classics of Fluminense played in the Estadio do Maracanã is 60,107 against Flamengo, Vasco against the 43,735 of 34,359 against Botafogo of 25,127 against America and of 22,527 against Bangu, medium plus the public that these gifts could be about 20% higher, given the issues of the distribution of gratuities in the Maracanã. Corinthians vs Fluminense, the Great Fluminense Interstate Derby. Considering the interstate clashes, the derby against Sport Club Corinthians Paulista is perhaps the most representative among the various confrontations with big Brazilian clubs played by Fluminense, given the fact that these clubs often intersect at decisive moments in their stories either by the end Rio Cup, the direct contest in several tournaments Rio São Paulo since 1940, or by the qualifying rounds of the Championship or Cup of Brazil, in the great struggle of the 2010 Czar Copyright Rai when the two clubs contending for the title from the early stages of the championship with Corinthians being beaten for the championship by Fluminense in the final round, as was the case in 2011, when Corinthians were crowned champions and the Tricolor, considered the best team during second round of the league, were placed third after the final match day. Players Current squad as of September 24, 2015. Note: flags indicate national team as defined under FIFA eligibility rules. Players may hold more than one non-FIFA nationality. Out on loan Note: flags indicate national team as defined under FIFA eligibility rules. Players may hold more than one non-FIFA nationality. Reserve team Note: flags indicate national team as defined under FIFA eligibility rules. Players may hold more than one non-FIFA nationality. First team staff as of June 2014. Head coaches. Statistics. Players with most appearances top goal scorers coaches with most appearances Notes. References. External links, official website, FLICKR, Fluminense officials photo streamer downloadable Fluminense photos, Fluminense Football Club news at sambayfoot.com, Fluminense FC page at goal.com, Fluminense FC fan page at Socksaway, statistics on major competitions, statistics on all matches between 1902 and 2006, Hourly news about Fluminense Football Club. Statistics on the 2009 Czar Copyright Rai Championship, Fluminense FC Daily News in Portuguese, official Fluminense Football Club page at FIFA, Fluminense Football Club page at ESPN Global, Fluminense FC. At the World Game, news, results and tables.